one of the hosts on MSNBC, and he delivered remarks, very pointed remarks, toward the Trump administration for releasing the files of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Tyrone Bowman live. Let's go to the video now, and for background information, Martin Luther King Jr., an American, he was a civil rights leader, and he was assassinated at the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1968, and he was pronounced dead at 6:01 p.m. He was rushed to St. Joseph's Hospital, where Dr. King expired. Let's go to the video, courtesy of NBC News.
The release involves records related to the assassination of Martin Luther. The Trump administration releasing 200,000 pages of previously sealed documents, but not the ones that you might expect this week. The release involves records related to the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. The Trump administration hailed the move as a major step toward transparency, but Dr. King's two living children opposed the release of the documents, and civil rights leaders, including my next guest, say it's a distraction from growing calls to release files about Jeffrey Epstein. Joining us now, National Action Network President Reverend Al Sharpton. He's also the host of Politics Nation right here on MSNBC. Rev, thanks so much for being with us. So you are close friends with the King family. They didn't want this to happen. They didn't want this document dump, and you've said that this is not about transparency. So what do you think it's about?
I think it's a distraction or attempted distraction from the Epstein files. The King family, I work closely with Martin Luther King III. Reverend Bernice King, his sister, who's kept the King Center going. They had said that they wanted to go through the files, and we're in the process of doing that because you must remember a lot of these files were done by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI in the 60s, where there was a real plan by them to dislodge the civil rights movement, come out with salacious lies on Dr. King, and they wanted to make sure that these files were not contaminated by this kind of distortion of their father. Then all of a sudden, they dropped the files. 200,000 plus pages. Now, you'd have to ask yourself, even the most objective person, why would you want to drop files that were sealed in 77 that were not supposed to be unsealed for another couple of years? Why would you drop that many files now, but you can't drop the files on Epstein, which is just a couple of years ago? You're talking about, well, maybe we'll do the grand jury minutes. Why not all the Epstein files, but you give all the King files, despite the fact you know they may be distorted and untrue information in them?
Obviously, precarious timing in a lot of people's eyes. Historians are just now starting to comb through this trove of files, 200,000 pages here. A leading biographer for Dr. King himself telling the New York Times his initial assessment essentially is that there's not much new here, but is there anything that you believe might be useful to the public?
I mean, clearly, if they come up with the fact the family has always felt that James L. Ray was not acting alone and may not have been involved, who was the one convicted and went to jail for the killing of Dr. King. If that were to come out from this file, that would be new. But I am more concerned as one who grew up in the King movement in the North. I'm from New York. Most of the movement was in the South. But when I was 13, I became youth director in New York of the economic organization, Operation Breadbasket. We always knew there was a plot to get Dr. King, and that was ultimately happened in 68. I was only 13 years old, but I was already involved. We always knew there was plots to try to avert other parts of the civil rights movement. So to have this, especially at this time, just drop like this is very disturbing to us. But more than us, the personal toll it takes on the family. Bernice and Martin lost their father. Martin's daughter, who was the only grandchild the Kings would have had, Bernice's niece, never would meet her grandfather. So now they've got to relive all of this and live in this anxiety of what they will try to do to his reputation that they tried to do in life with lies. Is just something that is beyond the pale.
And I know what's really important to the family here is to maintain that historical context that you mentioned, what the FBI was up to at the time, their perspective on Dr. King. So how important is the historical context as people maybe try themselves to comb through what's been released?
It's very important, the historical context. Let's not forget this is a man that led a movement that made America a full democracy with the Voting Rights Act of 65, Civil Rights Act of 64. So this is not just some celebrity. This is a man that was a consequential figure in world history, Nobel Prize winner. And to just reduce this to can we find some dirt so that we can cover what we all know is dirty in the Epstein case. We don't know how involved the president was or was not. I'm not making that accusation. But it seems to me that he has found a way to get everybody's files out, or at least others' files out. But why don't we have the same openness with the Epstein files that you're now doing to Dr. King, a man who gave his life for this country?
Yeah, we just saw that tweet from Bernice saying, now do the Epstein files. So she's clearly saying there's more to this than just releasing this information about my family member. Reverend Al Sharpton, we appreciate you as always, and you can catch
J. Edgar Hoover, who was then the director of the FBI, hated Martin Luther King Jr. with a passion. And anything contained within the 240,000 pages pertaining to Dr. King in a negative way, ladies and gentlemen, no matter what they say, no matter what they try to do to try to turn us against Dr. King, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. If these people can idolize their MAGA heroes, no matter what they say, no matter what they do, no matter what they will do in the future, we will continue to honor, respect, and uphold everything that Martin Luther King Jr. stood for. He was our hero, our champion, our brother. Never surrender, never quit.